Hey guys, hope you're doing well and welcome to another Daily Choices episode where we just go through some choices that we all have, whether it's related to routines, relationships, purpose, confidence, absolutely anything, and we just tackle ways of dealing with those choices. Of course, let me know in the comments if there's any choices that you've been dealing with and maybe are a bit stuck on, or if there are some choices that you face every day and maybe you want to make slightly better. So let's start with the first question, which is ways to build more balanced social life into routines. I think especially when we have commitments, it gets a little bit harder to balance social life. For like an extrovert like myself, it can get really challenging to stay on top of everything while still see my friends, make it all work together. So firstly, what I'd say really helped me is trying different ways of socializing, whether that's one-to-one, in groups, trying different activities, maybe doing something a little bit more chill. And I find it's kind of good to implement them with your routines as well and how your weeks are looking. So let's say your job is more chill and your daily routines are a little bit more quiet. For socializing, you might want to do more of an activity, or for instance, like myself, having more of an active job, I prefer doing something a little bit more chill, maybe going to like a coffee shop or a park, really managing it alongside of your energy levels as well. So another point which is kind of linked to that is scheduling. So if you know you're going to have a very busy week commitment wise, maybe you want to lower the social side of things. However, maybe when you have a more of a quiet week or a quiet weekend, make sure to schedule in to have some social time in there. Being a little bit more organized and planning a little bit more in advance is really helpful as well. Maybe if you see a friend weekly or bi-weekly, talking about which date works for them, so it's more of a set routine on that specific day. Maybe even if you're not usually the friend to be like, okay, what days of the week are you usually free? Maybe that's a good step to initiate that and make it a little bit clearer for yourself. And I think a kind of huge part of all of this is just to check in with yourself to see how you're doing emotionally, how are your energy levels doing, and that can make everything a lot smoother as well. The next one is ways to acknowledge our own flaws. This is a bit of a deep one, I guess. I don't think it's something we often like to do. It's easier to just like brush it aside and pretend we're perfect. I think a good way of doing this is putting ourselves in an outsider perspective, seeing it more as, if I saw someone else doing what I did today, how would I feel about that? Is there anything I would want to improve upon? Not in like a critical way, like being super judgmental towards ourselves, but just not taking it as personally, really, and being a bit more objective, understanding that obviously we're not always going to be perfect, react the way we want to, behave the way we want to, say things in a certain way as well. Understanding that we're not always going to be perfect, but also acknowledging that sometimes when we maybe don't react the way we would have wanted to, it's good to just evaluate it and just reflect on it, really, seeing how we could have done it a little bit better next time, in what way we could have reacted differently. Because if we never look at ourselves objectively, we're never going to grow and change either. The next one is how to make long-term goals less overwhelming. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I think about my future and long-term goals, it can be overwhelming and I can get stuck thinking about it and thinking, where do I even start? A way that usually helps me to deal with this is having a rough plan. Even though plans can always change, I think it's still good to have a direction, especially writing it down and seeing it on a piece of paper is just a good way to give clarity to that as well. And there's loads of 5-year plans online that you can use as guidance. I personally really like the Jordan Peterson one. He has one on his official website. I can leave a link below. And another thing that's helpful that's kind of included in these sort of plans is breaking down the steps, because if you just see like a huge ambition or goal, you're like, where do I start? Just like with anything, if you break it down into little steps, it's more digestible. I don't know if that's the right word. And as I've said before with other things, it's always useful to check back in with yourself as well to see how everything's going, if anything needs adjustment, and having these more consistent reflections can be a really good way to maintain that before it gets really overwhelming as well. But yeah, I'd really love to hear how you guys deal with these sort of daily moments where you might be overwhelmed by the future or where you see yourself, just how you deal with it. What is your way of comprehending that? The next one, I'm sure we all come across at some point, for me is like every 2 weeks, is how to lift yourself out of tired moods. Obviously, some days we just haven't had enough rest, so we're going to be tired and just need to rest. Whereas other days, the weather might not be as nice outside and we still want to have a little energy boost. But something that's worked really well for me lately is whenever I notice I'm feeling more tired or have like a lower mood, I will just get ready to exercise, even if it's just a 3K run in the park or going to the gym, whatever it is. I think naturally the endorphins and everything give such a boost and the body kind of wakes up by itself. So I'm trying to implement that a lot more now. Yeah, let me know if you've ever tried that as well, where instead of going for a nap, you went for a run, and if it did actually pay off at any point. Another way that actually really works for me as well, being an extrovert, as I mentioned before, is simply going to grab a coffee with a friend, just talking about however you're feeling, whatever you're going through, and just expressing that can be such a good way to get motivated and get more energy as well. And the last daily choice to tackle is ways to acknowledge the process and what we already have. I think just like anyone, I definitely struggle with like noticing what's already been achieved instead of noticing it, always just chasing the next thing. And sometimes I think it helps to just acknowledge what we have and be grateful for that, so we're not always chasing what we don't have, if that makes sense. I think by seeing more what is here and what is happening now, it helps to kind of be part of it a bit more and a little bit less worried about the next thing and what's going to happen in a week or a month. To be where we are now, we've chased for that as well. So not to even enjoy it or acknowledge it, I think can be a shame, really. So something that really helps me with this is, for instance, at the end of the day or at the end of a week, while having some quiet time like a tea or meditating, just sitting for a little while, or even writing down things like something that you worked on that went well during that day, and no matter how big or small it seems, but just really acknowledging it, because that is like a day that you spent doing that specific thing, even if it's not like a huge thing. And maybe even highlighting to yourself how you did a little bit better than last time. Maybe you simply did a certain skill a bit better, maybe you handled the situation better, and just acknowledging that process in yourself. And that's the end of today's Daily Choices episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more content like this or have any more ideas, feel free to let me know in the comments, and like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of it. I hope you have a lovely week ahead, and I'll see you in the next one.